Today's quote.
Yeah. It was by Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere.
Julius Nyerere, and he said, empty promises are the currency of weak leaders.
Empty promises are the currency of weak leaders.
Of weak leaders.
Segue into today's
right. I think the reason we are doing Miss Me With That as we are today, I want to take it a little bit. I just want to read a little bit of the article on the Daily Nation on page 17 by Macharia Gaido, because I think he gave a good opening, because this really stems from this very problematic presidential tour that took place not too long ago. So under ordinary circumstances, a presidential visit to any part of the country should be welcomed by residents, right? These tours give the president a chance to speak to his people, an opportunity to gauge the mood. Locals get that rare opportunity to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak, on the government's mission and agenda. Yet, what was witnessed during President William Ruto's 5-day campaign tour of Nairobi last week, disguised as a development tour, was sheer terror. It became the norm with the news of an impending presidential visit. Children were removed from schools, shops, markets, and other businesses, places shuttered, and movement voluntarily restricted. He goes on, so I know he was focusing on the mood and what came out of it. But what came out of it was also roadside declarations, which is why in this week's Miss Me With That, I feel like I'm completely remodeling it. I should have ended with Miss Me That, but I'll start with it. We're highlighting President William Ruto's pattern of making spontaneous, unplanned promises. They're often described as roadside declarations, which raise concerns about governance and adherence to constitutional protocols. Questionable feasibility of promises. I'll list some. I'll invite Mariam and Latif to really expound on it. Chapati machine pledge, for example. President Ruto pledged to acquire a machine capable of producing 1 million chapatis. Fact checks indicate that this would require producing approximately 12 chapatis per second, casting doubt on the practicality of such a thing, right? Unfunded health projects. The Health Ministry requested an additional 1 billion to fund 13 public health facilities. These projects are not included in the initial budget, highlighting challenges in financial planning and resource allocation. Undermining institutional processes, right? Budgetary oversight, for example, implementing projects based on impromptu presidential promises without parliamentary approval. This undermines the budgetary processes and sets a concerning precedent for governance. Public skepticism and accountability, eroding of trust, because the recurrence of grand promises lacking clear execution plans diminish public confidence in leadership. We've talked about that to the end. So basically, visionary leadership is essential. It has to be grounded in practical planning. But President William Ruto's roadside declarations are just becoming a very unhinged way to have conversations, to be a leader, and to be an effective governance leader. It's unhinged is the word. The roadside declarations are not just technically illegal, but they are also, in a sense, too grandiose. They lack any sense of beginning and end and middle. We are forced to listen, but I think we now have an opportunity to push back and not only say, you're focusing on producing chapatis, and while that's supposed to be part of a feeding program that I'm sure somewhere along the way in your mind was supposed to be an effective addition, is not only not a priority, it makes no sense. There is no rollout. You're suddenly waking up and saying these things, and then you're expecting us to adjust. And then when we ask questions, you are calling us noisemakers, and you're saying that we just shoot from the hip and give you all these nicknames because you think it's fun. And I'm just saying, miss me with that. Miss me with that. You cannot make roadside declarations expecting it to be a point of truth and expect us to sit and listen. And even before you guys come in, can I read something really interesting that was sent to me around this? It says the constant lying, and by the way, it's also important to say that a lot of these declarations are lies. Let's go back to the 500 million shillings set aside for the Grammys. I don't want us to forget these lies and utterances. They've existed before. Because some people might say, some of the things you're saying, Janet, about funding health facilities, etc., I'm sure you can trace some of it. Some of them are just lies. Grammys can't come to Kenya. So that was a lie. It wasn't just a declaration, it was a lie. So what does that mean? This constant lying is not aimed at making the people believe a lie, but at ensuring that no one believes anything anymore. It goes on. I'll tell you who said that. A people that can no longer distinguish between truth and lies cannot distinguish between right and wrong. And then finally, and such people, deprived of the power to think and judge, is without knowing and willing it, they are completely subjected to the rule of lies. With such a people, you can do whatever you want. That was Hannah Arendt, a German historian and philosopher.
Yeah. I hear you, and I hear, the public anger that comes, out of every time we see our political leaders, particularly coming from right at the very top. President talking about, we're here, we're going to do this, we're going to do the other, we're going to do A, B, C, D.
Right.
And I ask myself, is there a threaded connection here between the anger being that this is another promise being made without looking at what has been accomplished? Or is the anger the fact that this declaration is being made here? Or is the anger that the declaration was not made in the form of, a formally read notice? I, therefore, President William Ruto, CGH, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, of the Defense Forces of Kenya, and so on and so forth. Where is the anger exactly?
A combination of all. I think the last one is what we need to be most cognizant of. It is completely unconstitutional to make roadside declarations because it means that you are almost in a sense ignoring whatever budgetary allocation was set aside for whatever it is that you're discussing, especially if it's something new, right? Because roadside declarations are essentially, oh, I've seen Apo Amna Shule, I'm going to build a school there.
Right.
I've got you. Oh, I can see here, this health facility is in deplorable condition. I'm going to. Even if it sounds like Santa, even if it sounds like Christmas is coming early, what happens is, if that becomes normal, then you're going to normalize the unconstitutional,
but
whether
what's
or not it works.
about that,
no,
Janet?
you have to make a declaration formally. Let me read.
Yeah. Because
it,
there's something called a declaration and there's something called a promise. If a leader comes to an area and then the leader hears you and says, all right, we are going to address that. That doesn't mean that I'm going to address it immediately.
How does this feed into our existing budget, our existing plans, etc.? Because I think the problem is not that you have good intent and you want to fix the problems of the day. It's that these are often said to placate people and to get a hurrah from the crowd whenever you walk in somewhere. Janet Reid, because I was going to go into the cost perspective,
yes,
so we can
do.
see what those numbers look like.
Any declaration by the president which is not in writing, meaning signed and sealed, is contrary to Article 135 of the Constitution. So to be effective, roadside declarations must be followed through in writing and expenditure thereof must be approved by Parliament and the controller of budget. Right?
So for that declaration to be complete as an action, then it will follow those. It doesn't mean that you cannot say it.
It does. I think you should be cognizant of the fact that
it doesn't mean that you can only say it after you've done.
No, but if you're going to
you can declare intention.
They should have been planned for, and funds should be legally appropriated.
But if you declare intention, what's wrong with that? If you declare intention to build a school in response to the community need for a school, right? Is that a declaration or is that a promise in response to this?
I think
I am cognizant of what you have said, and you're asking for a school.
Why wasn't building the school on your radar before?
I hadn't come to the ground. I mean, not everything is in my radar. And that's the whole issue of
But of your government's radar. I honestly find it hard to fight against someone saying, I want to build a school, but we'll still get into, will the school be built? Where will the money come from? Etc. Right? Okay, machine that makes 1 million chapos a day. Let's assume such machine exists or can be procured or created. We live in a world of possibilities. Fantastic. Cost for ingredients alone a day, 11 million shillings. I just used estimates here, by the way. Thomas Labor, at the very least, if people are basically volunteering that time, you're looking at about 500,000 shillings. Utilities of 500,000 shillings. Packaging of 200,000. Logistics of about 1 million shillings. Packaging the chapos. How are you transporting them?
Ziweke tu kwa pickup truck huko nyuma.
Listen. Okay, you continue. I'll respond to this.
Logistics of 1 million shillings, overheads of 500 shillings a day, coming to about 14 million shillings a day for these 1 million chapos. Right?
Yep.
That's about 14 boba chapo.
Okay.
Okay. We've really been very, very conservative with our
figures.
estimates. That's the word. 195 school days in a year. I've removed weekends, holidays, etc. That gives you 2.7 billion shillings a year. Where is 2.7 billion shillings coming from? And this is just the chapos. Who gets these 1 million chapos? Which students where? Who gets, who doesn't get?
When did he say this? Because I think what Mariam is doing and why it's good is that it now needs to move beyond the declaration to the breakdown.
Okay.
You asked, is there anything wrong with making promises? The problem is, and I will say again what Ms. Hannah said many, many decades ago, a people that can no longer distinguish between truth and lies cannot distinguish between right and wrong. My point is, some of these declarations have been lies. So we cannot say, oh, but somebody shouldn't make it a habit or shouldn't be able to make promises. Promises are good. I do want to build your school. I do want to enhance your services. At the same time, I also want to open designer stores. I also want to produce an excessive amount of chapatis. I won't explain to you how we'll do it. I also won't explain how we're going to make some of our constituencies or wards, like London, for example. I won't explain. I'm just telling you, I'm going to make you. It's going to happen. And I'm telling you for real, we're going to get everyone from the Grammys here.
Bro, sinimina kusho.
And what people, exactly. And what people,
Tutakwa London,
think, tutakwa London, bro. And I think what people need to be most cognizant of is don't downplay these roadside declarations, because within them, there are lies. I think there's hidden agendas. It's an easy way to say so much, and then so much comes at you that you almost move on with life saying, he said that thing. No. We need to push for follow through. Roadside declarations cannot exist as they do. It allows, I think, a manipulation of systems, budgets, and the Constitution. That is the danger with roadside declarations.
Don't get me wrong. I hear you. I hear you very well. I'm asking, where is the anger? Because sometimes we just see a lot of anger, and you try to break down, so what exactly is the issue with the anger here? And where is it coming from? And what's the underlying factor? The underlying factor could be all those things that, it's a political system that has promised, started, not finished. Promised, started, not finished.
It's a promise sitting on a grave of thousands of promises.
Right? If all those things have not been done, then there's that. But then there's the other side of questions that come just because something has been said, then a question comes. The issue of the chapatis. We have this clip, Wangeshi and Philip, right? We can the promise that was made in Nairobi on the chapati one. Take a listen.
Gavana ameniuliza ya kwamba ili tuongeze chapati kwa dishi ya Nairobi, ninunue mashini ya kutengeneza chapo. Na nimekubali nitamnunulia mashini ya kutengeneza chapo. Sasa wewe gavana, tafuta mahali ya kununua mashini ya kutengeneza chapo milioni. Gavana ameniuliza ya kwamba ili tuongeze chapati kwa dishi ya Nairobi, ninunue mashini ya kutengeneza chapo. Na nimekubali nitamnunulia mashini ya kutengeneza chapo. Sasa wewe gavana, tafuta mahali ya kununua mashini ya kutengeneza chapo milioni 1.
So background here, the county government of Nairobi 2 years ago signed an MOU with the National Government Ministry of Education on a program that was launched by the county government of Nairobi called Dishina County, a school feeding program. The county government also signed a partnership with a local social development.
Right.
What's it called?
Food for education.
Food for education. That has been establishing kitchens.
Right.
And using that saying, let's kill and feed the children of Nairobi. They have been doing the school feeding program. In that program, there's rice, there's beans, there's, in some instances, chapos. The president here says, Governor Amenueliza. The governor had spoken prior and said, we are doing this dish in a county school feeding program. For us to be able, and the kids are asking for us to, diversify the meals, for us to be able to diversify the meal, chapos. But now our challenge is to do from our central kitchen, chapos that then would serve these children. Then we need to have proper equipment that can do chukua unga, mix unga, make dough, then boil chapo, make chapo, pick a chapo. By the time the trucks are reversing, those chapos are in those trucks. So how do you carry the chapos? The same way they're carrying the food, the rice and the knees. They have ways of carrying the food to the schools.
So unatoa cost ya transport hapo kwa my 1 million
cost ya
chapos.
packaging, cost ya all those things.
Mbona to package? How we not?
We're putting the chapos in the dishes that are taking the food. I mean,
I like the packaging imekusumbua.
No,
Mariam. It's fair though.
Weka kwa juala.
Yeah.
Unaweka kwa dish. You're putting many chapos. How do they take the rice? They don't put rice in a kajuala. They put rice in this big sufuria.
I'm not saying it's one juala per chapo. Anyway, let's move on.
But the whole issue
I don't
here
want to get too granular.
The issue here is, and I'm saying, so the president stands up. I have an issue with how the president speaks. But I'm also trying to say, let us be specific on what our anger is.
Can I try and have Robin, I'll say one thing because I think Mariam is coming in. Robin Orina on YouTube, this is how he's also trying to answer your question. Latif, issue, Apa, is this guy has been making promises that he doesn't live up to. So the issue is that you can't promise people things that don't make sense considering they are not in the budget. I like how he's broken it down. He has said essentially what we're trying to say, which is, number one, you've promised relentlessly many times. I'm not saying all the time. I'm saying many times there's been no follow through. You'll make a roadside declaration 6 months ago and kind of expect people to ignore and move on, which a lot of the time people may. What's happening now is people are saying, wait. Let's bring all the newspaper clippings. Let's lay them here of everything that was said. I think you had a guest last week, correct me if I'm wrong, who on her ex, she was just like, let's tally the lies, right? So there's a lot more awareness. So the problem is not about the chapati per se. The anger, I think, is that, dude, you keep doing this. And a lot of the time, you do not follow through, number one. Number two, we demand to know where it is in the budget. Because you telling us you're going to add chapos, that's sour. Nobody's complaining about that. What's your plan? Where is the money coming from? What is the breakdown of expenditure? What money is being borrowed from where? And does that then suffer? That's the anger. Is number one, it sounds ridiculous. Agreed. Number two, you're not breaking it down for us. It's a declaration. People cheered. We heard that. That's what roadside declarations are. Santa! Yes. Oh my God! Okay, now after that, have we heard anything about chapos? Sorry, Mariam, I interrupted you. I know we had 2 minutes to the break.
Agreed. This is from the people, 2 minutes. From the people that brought you laptops for every school-going child, we now bring you 1 million chapos just lying on a bed of other broken promises that have not been fulfilled, will never be fulfilled. Then the other issue for me is the why. Why are these promises made whenever you go somewhere and you want to make those people happy? It's the timing, it's the use of it, it's manipulative. It's, I am here, I can't leave you without anything. I'm the president. Siwezi kuja mkono, nikuwa hivi tu. I'm either coming to cut some ribbon or promise some ribbon cutting in the future. That's it. As opposed to your mandate is meant to be making sure that things work all the time. Nutrition should be top of mind for you, for these kids all the time. A chapo is something it's working with the psyche of a kid, exciting them. Because everybody likes chapo. Who doesn't love a chapo? But you're a president, you can't be thinking chapo. You should be thinking overall nutrition for the kids of the county of Nairobi.
Okay. So, is the
and the country as a whole.
So, if the president had the governor saying, this is how far we've come, or even the bosses of Food for Education saying, this is what we have done, this is what we've been able to do. Now, the feedback that we are getting from the community that we are feeding, the children, is diversify the offering on the menu. And among the things that they're asking for is chapati. It's actually possible for us to give these children chapatis. Our challenge is how to make those chapatis in time for delivery. Okay? You're the president, you're listening. Respond.
As the president, I don't think I would be like, let's give them a machine that makes 1 million chapos a day. I would say, what's your issue? You've said your menu needs a little bit of diversification.
And what we need, they want chapati.
Specifically,
our challenge is that we cannot really make those chapatis with what we have. It needs a capital expense.
I wouldn't really run to make the promise.
There we go.
I would say to the governor, I hear these kids, their menu needs diversification. What can we do? Like, let's plan long term. In the next 1 month, 2 months, can we have 1 day a week where guys are eating? Chapo, what would that look like from a labor perspective?
That's what they're asking for.
No.
For this 1 day a week,
I would not make a declaration.
To make 1 million chapatis.
I would not make a declaration.
And I need a machine.
I would not make a declaration.
Go into this kitchen and make 1 million chapatis.
I would not make a declaration.
How would you respond?
I think as a president, my job is not to make declarations that just make you happy. My job is to figure out, like, from a governance and policy perspective, what am I doing to feed into all the things that make your life easier, that give you food, that give you education, that give you healthcare. So it's not for me to declare that I'm going to give you 1 million chapos. It's for me to figure out what funding is going into Dishina County, what funding is going into education as a whole, what funding is going into healthcare, into everything, so that you're a happy, healthy baby, grown up, whatever, Kenyan.
Yeah. I like that. As we go into a break, because it's past, I really like that. No, that's good. It's that. I was going to say the same thing. It's not about making you happy. It's about doing what is effective and following through and breaking it down and giving myself time. And as we go into the break, Jacroni Karani on YouTube says, right now, any promise made by political class, believe at your risk. You're watching Fixing the Nation. It's 9:30. We're coming back to figure out how do we, is there such a thing, course-correct roadside declarations? What's our role as citizens in holding these declarations to account? And what does the Constitution say about how government, how the president is supposed to be able to roll out programs, budgets, etc., without just stopping at roadside declarations? So we'll be back just now.
Oh yes. And Senator, I like the way Mariam says the red app, YouTube. So we are talking about the presidential declarations. Last week, when the president was also now touring another part of Nairobi, when he was in Kibra this time, he went somewhere and he went to a school, and the school community was saying, you know what, congestion in classrooms. And he made a promise, and this was the promise that he made.
Agenda yangu ya kwanza ni kuhakikisha kwamba wale watoto 1,200 wa pale St. Jesus Primary, walimu mkuu yuko hapa. I will make sure that we build an extra 5 classrooms for you so that you can support the primary school there. Na vile vile madarasa 10 ya secondary school. Tumeelewana?
Aya, rant.
Aya, ongea basi.
Ongea kutoke.
Okay. Nobody has said that those promises are necessarily... My pain point is, we cannot get used to declarations and promises being thrown at us without some sort of plan and follow through. And I'm going to have to stick firmly to that, no matter how much one can say, and I think you mentioned it, but maybe he could follow through with it. Maybe we just haven't heard. It's okay. Then make it clear to us. Don't end it at that. Nitawapea classrooms, nitaongeza. Don't end it at that. You want to be a real leader, follow through and say, and even have your ministry or whoever is supposed to be in charge of that docket later say, following the president's declaration, etc., this is how we plan to enhance the school facility. This is where the budgetary allocation, this is what it is, this is where it's coming from, and this is why we believe it's going to enhance the level of education and empower the community. But we don't see that, and I think we cannot be afraid to sound as petty and upset as we are, because there have been several promises that have not been followed through on. Mariam actually reminded me about laptops. You know, so you've said it's promises sitting on top of other broken promises. So my rant is, it's not just about the classrooms or the chapati. I like the way our director is saying those who are promised the laptops, they're graduating. Yeah. When Elekea could graduate. So that's where the anger comes from.
And that was, he was in the administration, by the way, before you say that was Uhuru.
Right. So for me, the anger comes from, don't take us for a ride. right? We're not saying making those declarations isn't good. Of course, we would love to scale our education, our classrooms, our food programs. We would love to scale those. But number one, you have a history of not following through. Number two, some of them just sound very ridiculous and grandiose, especially within a time frame that you say, Kesho Taifanya next week, tomorrow. And then number three, no, stick to the Constitution. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep going back to that. Create the framework, make it public, make it known.
Right.
So it's about accountability here.
Yeah.
The anger is for the apparent lack of accountability. So it's like you're just saying, and you move, you've forgotten about that. You go and meet those other guys. It's somebody who just goes and promises. You know, someone comes and tells you, boss, unajua nilikuwa na shida fulani. Fanya hivi, kesho saa 3 kuja kwa ofisi. And you know very well you are leaving town now and you'll be back next week. Okay? Wacha nenda hivi nikam. It's those kind of, it's that. You're questioning the sincerity of the promise being made.
Right.
Because if it was sincere, then you would see action following the promise.
Right. Question then. Okay. What next? The declarations will continue. What's next for us?
No, they should stop. Is that not what you're saying?
They should.
Yeah.
But is it in our power to stop them?
I think it's...
yeah.
Okay. Let's go through it. Okay.
Oh, yes. Listen, if we just sat back there and said, don't make this promise, we have told you what we want. Okay? Just say you've heard. Let us see tomorrow the County Director of Education coming and asking, so these are the number of children, so this, and then we see a follow-up of this that goes into, we are going to lobby so that this can enter into the budget, and then when it enters into the budget, then it shall happen this way. We are going to see how we can collaborate. Your MP has some level of CDF, the ministry can do this, how can this happen? If that there are things that happen,
right,
fine. Or if the direction, the declaration here is, so I have heard you, and you guys need 5 classrooms. Wapi, you need director of education plus the headmistress. Have a conversation tomorrow and see how this can happen.
Send me a plan.
How this can actualize. If
you know
can
why
fit
that's
it
not
in
gonna
this
happen?
budget or in the next one.
Hate to be the bearer of bad news. That lacks the utamu of giving people what they want now. It doesn't get the reaction.
So
it doesn't get
the people will not be happy.
Whoa! It doesn't get the 1 million chapeaus a day, 20 million shilling, 5 class. Wow, wonderful. Wow. It doesn't get.
When you break it down, it takes away the utamu.
It does, and now it becomes a thing of who is going to be the solution here. It's either us who get the promises and we decide, I don't need your promises. So even if you come and you leave empty-handed, quote unquote, but with plans that are feasible and you're sending like the principal secretary or someone to come and follow up and do these things, then I'm okay with that. Or we continue enjoying the empty promises and yay, and then being forgotten. It's us to pick which side we're on.
Pick the struggle, right? Yeah, and I think we should err on the side of don't bring me new promises. Show me the results of the promises you previously made.
But my need is unique. So the last time you made a promise to the guys across the ridge, okay? I can't say, Ati, no, don't fulfill my needs until you finish those ones. No, absolutely no.
Well, that's Janet. The culture we need to adopt. We can't adopt a culture of utamu.
No, I can't wait for 77 years until all those other promises
But you promised me to take 5 years. You promised me sometimes to take a year.
I am a student. I am a parent in this school. My child is in a congested classroom. I cannot say that because you promised the people of Baringo East last week, you're building a school, I will wait until you build a school in Baringo East for me to ask you to build.
I will. Then let me at least build a culture of following through and not just taking the promise as this sweet rhetoric. Let's build the culture of holding to account. Yes. I'm not saying we haven't. I think we've shown, actually, over the last year or so, that we really are about seeking accountability. I just think we're doing it against a system that is obsessed with, I guess, just exaggerating a lot of what they're supposed to be doing. And sometimes you don't even have to exaggerate it. You don't have to always come so grandiose. But not only do you combine it with saying, we'll turn this into London, we'll open a designer store, then we'll host the Grammys. Oh, and then we're going to add a couple of... The problem is that It's grandiose, it's unfulfilled, and it's also tone deaf because I don't need those things. Now again, no, it's different for the classrooms and chapati, but you've combined things which you know I need with things that are not possible. So now you've made me say, and again, it goes back to that quote of the lady. You have to be very careful about buying into the lie because someday you won't be able to distinguish the truth. And I think this is an intentional push, by the way. This is a great way to desensitize people. Do this.
So then, tujiangalie.
100%.
I think so. Listen,
100%.
And you've said it many times, Janet. Last year, we saw a different group of people because even then, even previously, there were civil society actors who were doing this accountability and putting it in reports and so on and so forth. Now we've seen a new way of accountability where people are going into their area and saying, this was supposed to have been built in my hood and it has not been built. This was a bridge that in the papers, on paper, it shows that 1 million shillings was spent to build this bridge and this is the bridge, right? And we've seen an increase of that. But then it rises
and it dips.
It dips. And we need to then sustain and support those that are taking their time to do it. And acknowledging them and saying, yeah, for whatever you're doing, keep doing it, right? Morara Kebaso started going around the country.
I was just going to come to that,
and said, look, it was launched on this day. This was the budgetary allocation for it. And I've looked at the payments. These are the payments that were made to this contractor. This is the name of the contractor. This is the status of this project. How far it has come, right? And he got the support for it. And I think we need to have more and more people just being encouraged to do it. Just do it. Not all of us are going to be able to. I could be the one who's just saying, Morara, please highlight this one in my hood. All right? And then Mariam supports by saying, Morara, I support you to go and do this. And then bring it
to make a kitu, ufio gari.
Kujofanye. So for example, this road that comes from Mandera and ends up in Isiolo, right? When the president said this when he was in Garissa and then again in Isiolo and he was repeating, it just went viral as people just, mocking it. Then he came to Nairobi and he said, okay, I'm seeing how you people are reacting and I'm going to repeat. And this is what he said to re-emphasize his point of that road. Watch.
I was in northern Kenya and I did announce a major road artery that will be constructed from Isiolo through Wajir all the way to Mandera. And many people assume or think it is a joke. Let me tell you, good people, in this country sometimes we take matters of life and death as if it is a joke. I am committed to delivering on that 750 kilometer of road from Isiolo to Mandera, because for a very long time, we have left northern Kenya behind.
We have left northern Kenya behind. Goes back to an earlier question I asked. Why wasn't this on your radar? Why wasn't this on any other document or any other proposal before you went to visit northern Kenya?
Was it
right?
not?
Did you see it anywhere?
This project has been going on, by the way. It started many years ago. It's been going on. It's a start.
Kutoka Isiolo.
Yes. It's being built in sections. It started, Kitambo, it goes, it stops. There are some areas where the contractor is paid, contractor delays in payments. These are those projects that are supposed to be like a 7-year project, end up being a 25-year project. That's the problem with some of these things.
Right.
In that, that there's a project. It started. It was not started by President William Ruto. It started when Ruto was deputy president. The plan for it started when Kibaki was president and Ruto was an MC.
So it keeps being inherited.
And the thing is, the completion for it. And I guess in Wajir, when you were speaking the first time, when you were saying that section from here to here, 20% of it is done and the contractor has moved off-site, the contractor is now back on site, and that was a bit better. But he now went into, just showing how I understand this topography of this country, the geography of this country. Inatoka mahali, inaenda. and it sounds like he's just painting this.
You got carried away.
It's a pie in the sky kind of thing.
Yeah, then don't gaslight us for questioning, because saying, you people, I say these things and you think it's a joke.
It's a joke.
Because oftentimes
Why
it
do
is.
why do people think it's a joke?
Because oftentimes it is.
Oftentimes it is. There's no people have no reason to doubt you if you have a history of keeping your promises. No one would be like, barabara itoke, huh? No, they'd just be like, we're getting a new road, this is fantastic. But it's because, again, sitting on a bed of broken promises that were not kept over the years, and it's like, okay, another one, another day, another promise, another day, another promise, another roadside declaration. So how are we supposed to take it seriously?
The constant lying is not aimed at making people believe a lie. It's ensuring that no one believes anything anymore. So we have to be careful.
And how does that benefit the speaker?
What do you mean?
How does that benefit the one who's repeating the lie and repeating the line?
I think
When no one believes anything.
When no one believes anymore. How
Great
does
question.
that benefit?
I think it allows them to hold themselves accountable should they have the conscience to do so. Because if you do spew lies and mix that with fact here and there, but oftentimes pepper it with lies, I don't know what to believe anymore. And of course, I'll be jaded.
So I can't hold you accountable, which means you're not answerable anymore for anything you say.
Well, not on our watch, hopefully.
So you say anything and anything passes.
Well, I think the saying anything is already happening. About it passing is now what we're pushing back on and saying, wait, no. You don't get to say that anymore. Or you don't get to say that without follow through and expect us not to push back. Unfortunately, you'll gaslight us about it because you'll say, people just take everything I don't say seriously because you've shown a history of not taking it. So no, it's saying whatever is said publicly, let's try and push and follow up for it, which I think Kenyans are doing brilliantly, many of them.
Yeah.
But we have to keep that pulse so that it doesn't get to the point where we're so desensitized, where we believe everything and then we're ruled by lies, which I think sometimes is an agenda, unfortunately. And it has worked in the past. It's propaganda. It's supposed to make you be able to manipulate the system and the constitution. That's how you do it.
It's the game and how the game has been played for a very long time, and how somebody who is a dyed-in-the-wool politician as William Ruto knows the game. And he's playing the game that way. Unfortunately, now he's getting this pushback, and initially he was a bit frazzled by this pushback that he got.
That's true.
Okay? And now what we are seeing from President William Ruto is that he is still feeling that pushback. It's still bothering him, but he has devised a way of coping. And the way of coping with it is by diminishing the pushback. So you call me Kasongo, he goes ahead and dances. Kasongo, he dances to it.
You call me
Sasa atu wamenipatia jina gani? Kasongo. Hata waniita Kasongo. Hata waniita Zakayo. Wengine mpya wameniita ni wanaita nini? Ati El Chapo. Sintalete Chapo. So that's a coping mechanism, I think, for President Ruto. But it shows that he is feeling the heat of the pressure from the public in everything that he's saying, and people are saying, and how then should both parties cope? I think the citizen should continue. We should continue doing all these things and telling it to him, look, this one you said, this one you didn't. But also go ahead of it with facts. Like what Morara has done, like what all these other guys have done, like what a guy called Boni Mwangi does on X. Boni Mwangi, B-O-N-N-I-E, Mwangi, not Boniface Mwangi. He's a Kenyan who's based in Texas, he's an economist and an accountant. He looks at the Auditor General's reports for every county, and every day he comes up with a report that says, this is what's happening in these counties, right? And like, for example, 4 hours ago, he posted, my fellow Kenyans, today I bring you an update on Kilifi County Government rendezvous with taxpayer funds. This analysis of the 2023-2024 fiscal year, if you're interested in my original analysis of Kilifi, here is the link. He says, the reality of Kilifi County. He breaks it down. The budget in Kilifi, 15 billion shillings. The annual income per citizen in Kilifi was 64,000 shillings. Poverty rate is 50%. 750,000 people struggle for 2 meals a day. He goes ahead and he's consumed the data. He presented. Support such people.
I like that.
Support such initiatives. And use that then to raise to the people. What should the president do? Please stop this thing of a coping mechanism and pushing.
And invalidating
and trying to invalidate.
Right.
It's going to come and bite you.
Okay.
It will come and bite you.
My last one, just for us, don't fall for it. Don't fall for the promises, because it's back to basics. It's back to politics. It's galvanizing people in their home bases. It's coming, it's making promises. It's making you feel seen, feel heard. Don't fall for it. That's all. Eye on the ball, and we will get through this.
I like that. Don't fall for it. And yours was? You just said it'll come back to bite you.
Yep.
So before we completely say goodbye, I think we're crossing over to our lovely Mwikali for Your World. And today it's about the perfect couple myth. The perfect couple myth. Mwikali, perfect couples don't exist. Tell us about what we can expect today. Okay. Oh, okay, so there's Mwikali, looking lovely, ready to talk to us about the perfect couple myth. She has a life coach, a relationship coach, and relationship experts. Hey, perfect couple myth. Do they exist? Couple goals.
Couple goals. What is the perfect couple?
What is the perfect couple goal? I guess if you want to find out, watch Your World. It's starting in a few minutes. This has been Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time. Janet Mbugua, Eric Latif, Mariam Bishar. Remember, I think, whenever there's a roadside declaration, say it with me. Miss me with that. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. See you tomorrow.